Hi, everyone. I am Connie Szabo Schmucker. I'm Advocacy Director of Bicycle Garage Indy, and I welcome everyone on this call. This is the Indy Ped Bike Safety Summit, and we're going to talk about ways that we as a community can work towards creating safer roads for everyone. And I would love to welcome. We have several city-county councilors. We have a couple of state representatives, and let's see, trying to get everybody in here while I'm talking. And there are a couple of people who have some time commitments, so we're going to let them speak first. So I've arranged the agenda to first talk a little bit about Vision Zero. So Kim Irwin is going to be giving the explanation about that. What is Vision Zero? And then Councilor Barth is going to talk about the Vision Zero proposal that was just introduced last night. And then we'll go through some other topics related to making our roadways safe. So again, welcome to everyone. Let's see if I can do this. So we're going to have welcome, why we're here, what's planned, go over the Vision Zero proposal, outline of what other cities are doing, and some action steps at the end. Feel free to put questions or comments in the chat, and we'll try and cover those probably more at the end than during the presentation, but feel free to do that. And everyone attending this has a role to play in preventing traffic violence. And I don't really want to spend a lot of time looking at what has and hasn't been done to improve pedestrian and bicyclist safety up to this point. What's in the past is in the past. We need to focus on what can be done now and what can be done in the future. So that is going to be the focus of our discussions for tonight. And there's a couple videos that I want to play first to kind of frame this and frame Vision Zero. So we had some technical difficulties. So Andrea Watts is actually helping me out with this, and she's going to, I think I have to stop sharing so that you can share the videos. So I'm going to do that.
Okay.
And then Andrea is going to share the two videos, hopefully, if technology works.
Yes. Okay, share sound is checked. Allow, and then I'm saying it's this is the first one?
That's the first one, yes.
Wonderful. All right, we'll do full screen and we'll say play. And Connie, can you give me a thumbs up if the audio?
Okay, yeah.
So last year, 213 people died on our roads. What do you think would be a more acceptable number?
Acceptable? 70 maybe, probably 70.
Can you send 70? Actually, this is what 70 people looks like.
So Andrea, the sound is sharing, but not the video.
Okay.
So now what do you think would be a more acceptable number?
0. 0.
Okay.
That didn't quite work. So we'll try it from my screen and you'll see the video, but you won't hear the sound. So we'll try that. earlier the sound wasn't coming, but I think it's got captions, so hopefully you can see it. Okay, could everybody see that? Hopefully. So I don't know whether anybody could hear it. I will send the links to it so that um, you can watch them. I don't know if I want to try, you want to try the Columbus one or not? Okay, so the Columbus is similar, only asks a lot more questions from the Columbus pedestrians. So the upshot is that no one wants anybody in their family to be killed in a traffic crash, that it's not acceptable for someone in their family. And so shouldn't that be acceptable for everyone, that no one's family should have to suffer this? And that's the basic premise of Vision Zero. And I'm going to go to the next slide and turn this over to Kim Irwin with Health by Design.
Hi, everyone. Really good to be with you all. We appreciate you being here. I'm Kim Irwin with Health by Design and joined by a couple of my colleagues here as well. Taylor and Marjorie are on the Zoom with us tonight. I'm just going to offer a few very high-level comments about Vision Zero. Most of this information is from the Vision Zero network, and there are other resources available through various national partners and such. I just dropped the Vision Zero network link in the chat. Most of you are probably familiar with that group, but if you're not, there are incredible resources and just guidance, webinars, all kinds of things to dig into to learn more. I think the key things we want to just share about Vision Zero, which has been important, I know, not to speak for, but to some of the counselors in crafting the policy language and again, to many of us in sort of thinking about how we do this work here in Indianapolis, is really recognizing that Vision Zero is like one phrase that means doing 1,000 things differently. It really is about a systems approach, a safe system approach that addresses various components of our transportation system in a holistic, coordinated way, recognizing the complexity of that system and all of the things that go into it, but ultimately truly understanding, recognizing, and asserting that it is possible to eliminate roadway fatalities and deaths, and that no number other than 0 is acceptable. And so, we've spent literally decades building our communities, designing our communities, operating, maintaining our roadways with the car as the dominating, orienting force. And we know that there are consequences to that in various ways, but specifically in the toll that it takes on lives, on people's lives, on their livelihoods, on emotions, on property, right? The economic cost and the emotional cost is significant. And so when we think about Vision Zero, again, it is asserting that we can get to 0 deaths. We know what to do. We have to have the political will and assert the again, that will, that commitment, and the resources specifically to achieve that. It does assume that humans will make mistakes. And as a result of that, we have to design our roadways, our our vehicles, our systems, again, traffic systems, signage, those kinds of things to account for human failing and to ensure that we are mitigating that to the extent that we can. Again, it's a systems approach, and so we use the term whole of government, or some people might be familiar with the term health in all policies, that really says, right, this is not about the Public Works Department alone. This is about planning. This is about law enforcement. This is about the equity office. This is about Parks and Rec. This is about transit. This is about public health, right? All that whole of government approach really requires that, again, there's a role for every department and frankly, every a civil servant in our system, elected and not, to be addressing these things. And I think, and we'll talk a little bit more about cost and budgeting later, that'll be an important thing to keep in mind as we go through the process with this specific Vision Zero ordinance, and then the budgeting process that will start for the city next month. But that, again, this is about ensuring that resources that are in play now, that are being used now, are directed in ways that have the biggest impact on eliminating fatalities and serious injuries. Again, the evidence is very clear. That's sometimes, many of you have heard me say, like, that can be an advantage to being sort of behind in the way that we can be here in Indiana, is that we can learn a lot from what other people have done. And so I kind of wrap that up to just say there's a lot to this. The details matter. And we're, of course, thrilled that we're at this stage and having an ordinance that's been introduced to move the city forward in this way. And there's a tremendous amount of work still to happen beyond that. So I'll stop there. Again, thank you all for being here. Happy to answer questions in the chat and beyond. And thank you, Connie, for organizing and bringing us all together.
Thank you, Kim. I've got a couple more slides. This will be in, I will send the link to this slide presentations as well as the recording to everyone. So you don't necessarily have to take notes. You can look at it later. But this is an example of Alexandria, Virginia, which had 0 traffic deaths. It is possible in 2023, and these are the things that they did to get there. So it is, there are cities that are experiencing 0 traffic deaths. It's not this unattainable number. And Alexandria, Virginia is one of them. Key takeaways. There is a Shifting the Paradigm video on Vision Zero, and it's Vision Zero 101. And these are the key takeaways from that. The link to that 1-hour webinar is in this presentation, and it's on the Vision Zero network under their webinars. So I encourage everybody to also look at that. So with that, I'm going to give this over to Councilor John Barth.
Thank you, Connie. Can you hear me? Okay, great. Well, thanks to Connie for organizing this. Thanks to Kim for the overview. Thanks to all of you for being on. Again, I'm John Barth. I'm a member of the City-County Council in my 3rd term, representing District 7, which is essentially the Midtown area, 38th Street to Broad Ripple, Keystone to the river. So I have been fortunate to have a finger or a hand in just about every pedestrian and cyclist safety and general motorist safety ordinance that's come along since the pandemic. And this is probably the biggest crescendo of all of them. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. I want to start by acknowledging other councilors who are on. I think Connie already noted everyone. Councilor Nielsen, I want to note, he is my co-author on this proposal 224. He and I wrote this together. He couldn't be on tonight because he had an obligation at a neighborhood meeting, but he wanted to be here. But in addition to Councilor Nielsen, Councilor Jones, Evans, Delaney, Brown, Allen, Gibson, and Cahill are all co-sponsors. So that's a meaningful and important and bipartisan sort of co-sponsors. So that indicates a meaningful amount of support on the council. All those councilors weighed in and had a role in making the proposal what it is. I should note that we've been working on it since not the day after the election last year, but pretty close to it. Councilor Nielsen and I started initial discussions with the city shortly after that. And Chairwoman Jones was in all those meetings as well. Also gotten a lot of input from the advocacy community. Also worked very closely. I want to acknowledge not only DPW, but the entire city enterprise. As Kim Irwin noted, one of the things that's really important about Vision Zero is it's not narrowly focused on what DPW can do or what IMPD can do. It's really trying to make sure everyone is pulling from the same end of the rope across the entire city enterprise, across the advocacy community, across the elected official world. Everybody has a role to play to make this be successful, and you'll see that as I proceed along here. So quickly, what proposal 224 is, and Connie and Kim both noted it was introduced last night. And just so you understand, introduced just means it was introduced to the council and read into the record, and now it gets referred to committee, and we'll talk about that more in a little bit. Okay, so what it does, it establishes a commitment from the city and the county to eliminate traffic injuries and fatalities. It establishes the Vision Zero Task Force, and it commits to developing, adopting, and implementing a Vision Zero action plan. The details of the proposal, and I'm going to go into more detail on the second slide here. But before I do that, it is focused on increasing safe, healthy, equitable mobility for all of Indianapolis. The focus is on prioritizing the safety of the most vulnerable road users, pedestrians, and cyclists. That I also think about anybody who fits into that pedestrian zone. Often people with disabilities are not considered, and people with mobility impairments. But just if you build your streets and your infrastructure to ensure that anyone with a mobility impairment can use it, then you're ensuring that everyone can use it. So that's always critically important for me to point out. It aims to eliminate all traffic fatalities and severe injuries by 2035. Enhances road safety through infrastructure improvement, policy changes, and community engagement. We pop to the next one, Connie. Or Andrea, who's ever driving. Okay, so now I'll get into a little bit more of the details. So earlier I noted that we have the council, with the support of the folks on the call, has proceeded with multiple proposals recently in the last several years. So the intent, Vision Zero isn't replacing, it's enveloping, underlining, and supporting, and then expanding on all the work we've already done. So this will be complementing the Complete Streets policy, which Councilor Maggie Lewis and I did together in my first term, and then 2 years ago we enhanced it, doing a lot of things, including creating the Fatal Crash Review team. But then other proposals as well, such as the Greenway Safety Ordinance. And then I don't want to forget that there is constantly movement going on. For example, in the spring fiscal ordinances that we just passed recently, that included funding for several pedestrian safety strategies that are in flight now. So for example, those ordinances fund something that's happening now, quick build materials for tactical urbanism, and continuing the Safe Routes to School projects in areas such as intersections and street lighting. So all that work will continue. I don't want to give the impression that Vision Zero is separate from or different from these pieces. All of these pieces will ultimately roll into what we're calling Vision Zero, but all that work continues. And up to and including the new budget that will be introduced next month by the mayor's administration. So some of the details in the proposal is that it will establish a 15-member task force with appointments from both the council president and the mayor. And to be clear, it will have a member representing the recreational cycling community. The task force will oversee the development and implementation of a Vision Zero action plan, collaborating with local government agencies, community organizations, and residents. So that's really the heart of what Vision Zero will be. It's creating this team, this task force of 15 members that is going to be very broad in the kinds of folks who will be representing the entire city, with people from the cycling community, people from the government agencies, elected officials, and others, all coming together to put together the Vision Zero action plan. And the intent there then is to have this plan that we all agree on. And so we're all pulling from the same end of the rope to make the improvements that we all want to see. I think one of the things that's really challenging, and I'm sure from an advocacy perspective, it can be challenging, is to hear that we can't do this thing now because of limited resources, or we can't do that thing now because of limited resources. And believe me, it's frustrating to me too. I wish we could do everything we wanted to do all at once, but the truth is we're very constrained in what we can do in our funding. So the Vision Zero action plan will help us both reorient how we think about investing in our built environment, how we police enforcement, how we do everything along the continuum, but we're going to do it in an organized fashion, prioritized, and allocating money to it in alignment with the agreement that comes out of the task force. So that the money part is really important. So hang on to that, and I'll get to that in a minute. So public meetings will be held to gather community input and to provide input to the council as we work this through. And critically, I think the proposal authorizes the city to hire a full-time Vision Zero administrator. So I think this is really important, something that I found from a whole career working in and around government is that you always have to have someone who's accountable, right? You have to have the person who wakes up every day knowing that their job is to make sure the Vision Zero action plan gets put into place. The same person goes to bed every night knowing that their job is to make sure the Vision Zero action plan gets put into place. And that person has the authority and the ability to navigate not only the city enterprise, but the entire community to work together collaboratively to make sure this happens. So it will be an individual's job to make sure this happens. And so I think that's really important. Okay, one more forward, Connie. Vision Zero has a timeline for the task force. We are putting this on a fast track, meaning this ideally, and I anticipate it will pass committee and then pass the full council in August, and then it will kick off in October. So that's a pretty fast moving process to identify the 15 members of the task force, to get that task force meeting organized, to have that ready to play out on October 1st. But we wanted to set a fast goal to get this moving as fast as we can. The Vision Zero action plan needs to be ready by 7/1. Listen, I 100% am confident that it will be ready before 7/1. I very intentionally put that date of 7/1 in there because, as I just mentioned, here in 2024, we're 1 month away from the budget being introduced. So it's very important that the Vision Zero action plan be ready before the budget's introduced. And so getting back to my point earlier about how important it is to have budget alignment with the Vision Zero action plan, the intent here is that we have the initial action plan ready by 7/1. It'll be ready before then. And then that then has the priorities and the attachment with budget recommendations that goes directly into the budget process. So the administration can, ideally attach dollars to those priorities. And then we go into the next budget process with dollars attached to the Vision Zero action plan. And so that's the cadence that we've used to design this from a strategy standpoint, is consistently using the task force to initially create the action plan, B, roll into the next budget process, and then C, the next year around, do an update. Where are we on the action plan and its implementation? Have we been successful in getting dollars aligned with it? Has the implementation gone effectively? If not, what corrections do we need to make? If so, let's move on to our next set of priorities. Make sure we have dollars attached to it. That's like a really disciplined, intentional way of making sure that the priorities of the community are really attached to the Vision Zero action plan, and then you subsequently attach budget dollars to that. Layered in with that are consistent reports to the council on the status of the Vision Zero action plan, and then an update to the action plan has to be done each May after the first year. So you can see the May again is in advance of the August budget submission. So I think we have one more slide. Okay, and here's the next steps for where we are. So 224 introduced last night. Then it will be heard in the Public Works Committee on July 18th at 5:30 in the City County building. And then assuming it passes that day, it will proceed to the full council for consideration on August 12th. And so as I've been noting, that's the same date as the budget submission. So that should be a big night. Okay, I'll stop there, and happy to watch out for questions down in the chat and respond to any of them that might come up.
Thank you very much, Councilor Barth. I don't think I've seen any specifically in that at this point. Let's see. So Councilor Brown said, I just wanted to emphasize something Chairman Barth mentioned right at the top. It's not the case we're not making any progress towards Vision Zero until 7/1/25, but we've seen substantial changes in the funding and prioritization over the last several years, and we don't want to wait until then to start on quick build projects. A question is, what is the best way for citizens to support this? That's a great question. We will have that at the end. We have some specific action steps later. So thank you very much, Chris, for that question. I think that's it. Are there any other counselors? I know we have several counselors on who are co-sponsors. If you wanted to add anything to what Councilor Barth said, feel free to unmute yourself and do that. Okay, if not, we're going to move forward. So, why we're gathering. This is a slide that I'm not going to read. It'll just be for you to refer to. But there are, back in 2015, we had 76 traffic fatalities and 841 incapacitating injuries, according to the Indy MPO. And in 2023, fatalities are up 60% and incapacitating injuries are up 161%. And for those of you who like maps, here's a map. This is 2015. And you can actually see where all the interstates are on this map. You can see where 465 is and where 65 and 70 and even 74. All, you know, you can see all of that. There were 9 pedal cyclists is what they call cyclists in nomenclature for transportation. And pedestrian crashes were 89 and 76 fatalities total. 819 vehicle crashes. And I can't really see it on my screen, but 841 incapacitating crashes. This is what it was last year. So we had close to 2,200 incapacitating crashes, 122 fatalities. We're now up to 188 pedestrian crashes, where it was 89 just 9 years ago or 8 years ago. And pedestrian bicycle crashes went from 9 to 41. So huge increase in all of those. And if you notice on this map, I'll go back, let's see if I can go back to the other one. Here you see a whole bunch of stuff around the interstates. Here you see them on major roads. And that's a pretty stark contrast in my opinion. You can kind of see some around here that were on 465, but majority of these, like this is 38th Street, if you can see my cursor. This is Washington Street. This is Michigan Road. This is Lafayette Road. South Meridian Street, I think, or Madison. Not sure what goes through Beech Grove. Is that I should know, but I don't.
I think that's Emerson.
Is that Emerson? Okay. So Emerson has a lot of crashes. And when you can, each one of these dots is someone who got killed or injured. The ones with the red circles around them are those people who are all the fatalities. This is another way to look at some of that same data. This is from the High Injury Network and the Safe Streets for All. And the lighter blue lines are where most of the crashes are happening. And the darker blue lines are where bicyclists and pedestrians are higher, more represented in those areas. And some of these same lines, of course, you see on this map here. Little different, but these are more where all of this stuff is happening. And the last map I'm going to throw at you is the traffic safety risk. So all of these orange and red lines are the risks of much higher risk of getting in a crash versus the blue lines where it's very low risk getting into the crashes. And if you can map it, you can fix it, because somebody doesn't just automatically become a more dangerous driver because they cross this line over here or cross this line. If you work on fixing the orange and red lines here and then work your way out to where to all the yellow ones and then the green ones, can solve a lot of the traffic fatalities and serious injuries that we're having. Let's see what is next. It's not what I wanted. All right, so that was last year. This is this year. These are some data points from April through May, and the most critical ones is, there were 6 days that 4 or more pedestrians or bicyclists were hit in April, and there was 1 day where 7 people were hit that were either bicycling or walking, and 2 of them were fatal. May wasn't much better, and June we didn't have as many people hit, but we still had 4 fatalities. And 1 day, June 24th, there were 5 incidences involving pedestrians and bicyclists, and 6 were hit. And just 2 days later, a 12-year-old girl was hit while attempting to board her school bus. So these are, this is what is currently happening. And the next slide actually is a graph showing, so this orange line is 2023, and it didn't really dip in November and December, and it just kept on going and got bigger in 2024. June was actually an anomaly on the good side. We only had 59 crashes that involved pedestrians and bicyclists. Whereas before in April we had 77, so it's quite a dip. Have no idea why that happened, but the other thing that we have found is in 2023, we were averaging about 1.5 pedestrians or bicyclists hit a day, and in 2024 we're averaging 2 per day. So we're, the frequency is definitely getting bigger. There is a Dangerous by Design is a report that's done every year by Smart Growth America, or every other year. And they found that, 7,500 people were struck and killed while walking in 2022, an average of more than 20 per day. And this is the intro to their report. And I am, unfortunately, this crisis will continue to get worse until those in power finally make safety for everyone who uses our roads a top priority. And I am very thankful for the counselors on this call who are working to address this crisis. And so I'm thankful for all of you for not only being on this call, but for the work that you're doing with the Vision Zero policy. So some of the things that have been done, there's the fatal crash review team, there's a greenway crossing ordinance, there's a complete streets ordinance, no turn on red, lowering of speed limits, building greenways and bike lanes, and rehabbing sidewalks, and implementing leading pedestrian intervals. And these are all great things that are being done. And it is the role of advocates to continue to push for more. And I get a lot of information in my email box, and I share about 1% with the counselors and maybe a couple percent with other people. But I always am looking for cities and communities that buck the trends, that their pedestrian fatalities and crashes are going down when everybody else's are going up. And so I like to take those ideas and just transplant them into Indianapolis so that we can, really make concerted effort and quick effort to change this. So Indianapolis is also rated 12 out of 100 points possible. That's pretty failure rate by People for Bikes for our bicycle network and safety and all of that. So they give suggestions on how to make it better for bicycling. I think the highest Indianapolis ever number of points has ever gotten is around 20, and now we're at 12. We're not going in the right direction, but there are things that People for Bikes can help us with, or some of their suggestions about how we can raise that and make our roadways safer and more connected for people to get around by bike. So one of the things that Vision Zero has is a lot of examples of some pop-up, quick build, and permanent. And it's a continuum. So you can do a pop-up thing, or you can do a quick build with the idea that eventually it'll become permanent. And I've been involved with the Monon and 86th Street Tactical Urbanism Quick Build project that we installed about 3 weeks ago. And so I'll talk a little bit about that. And Leslie Schulte is going to talk about the 10th Street project that she did, Community Heights Neighborhood Organization did in, and the results from that. So first I'll talk about the Monon. So what we did is we bumped out Monon and 86th Street. Give you some background. It's a very busy intersection. The Monon Trail has about 1 million plus users a year. 86th Street has 35,000 cars a day, and they intersect at 86th and the Monon. And it's never been a real easy intersection to cross. What happens is you come down the Monon, you go onto this sidewalk, you get to this corner and you cross the road at a light, and then you go on a sidewalk and you get back to the Monon. The problem is the cars that are here, the drivers that are here, like to turn right on red. Cars here like to turn right on red. There are North Central High School is just down the road, and a lot of the students come and walk the sidewalk to get to the Monon or to get to the Hardys that's right here. And they walk on both sides of the road because there's sidewalks on both sides. And so anyway, in 2021, the fall of 2021, one of my coworkers was riding his bike to work and crossing at this crosswalk, and a driver killed him when they drove through the intersection. And since then, I've been trying to work to improve this intersection. So what we did, we, as in Nora Alliance, me, a bunch of volunteers, we had 50 volunteers who came out and marked this with marking tape and put in the bollards. We did the other side of the intersection. We also did an art in the right of way. We did some sidewalk painting with a railroad crossing, so that it's kind of an homage to the Monon Railroad. And so we installed 13 of these bollards, and we did some curb bump outs, flex bollards. We put rumble strips in the roadway, created some pedestrian refuge areas, and put in some temporary crosswalk. Still to come is expanding the crosswalk and adding crosswalks on the north and south side, and adding trail crossing markings in the lanes leading up to the intersection. But all of that said and done, within 2 weeks of installing the bollards, 11 of the bollards were knocked over. They were hit. By the time we got ready to install them, there was only 2 left of those bollards. And that was last week when we reinstalled them, and within 1 week, as of this morning, 3 more have been destroyed in a crash. So we'll go back out and reinstall them once we find them. But that just reinforces that this is not this is not a real safe, or it doesn't feel like a very safe very safe intersection. So I have a link to more on that as well. But so this was a project that has been funded by the State Department of Health and by CIBA Foundation. We got $10,000 from the State Department of Health and $5,000 from CIBA Foundation, and lots of volunteers. And still to come also are some additional sidewalk art over on top of the railroad crossings from the YMCA. And Nora Alliances and Bicycle Garage Indy are the 2 main partners, but it's truly a community effort. And I will turn this over to Leslie Schulte to talk about her project.
Thank you so much, Connie. Appreciate it. Thank you for organizing this as well. My name is Leslie Schulte, and I was president of Community Heights Neighborhood Organization from 2021 to 2023. And I made it my priority to tackle speeding and reckless driving within Community Heights. We had 2 sites, one on 10th Street and one on 16th Street in front of Anna Brockhausen Elementary School. We installed murals in front of the school. We got skunked twice last summer, so we're still not finished with that mural, but we're working on it. And I guess I want to start with this. Speeding and reckless driving really came to a head after the summer of 2018, when a driver at rush hour between 5 and 6 traveling along East 10th Street was able to achieve speeds in excess of 100 miles per hour. And she traveled the length of 10th Street, of Community Heights' 10th Street, and sideswiped a bus before crashing into a tree. If the initial impact did not kill her, the ensuing fire did. And this event really just indicates how deadly our roads are, and how the people impacted are not just the folks in the car. No one knows what was going through her mind then, but in the aftermath, the pizza parlor adjacent to our neighborhood, the husband-wife pair that own that. The wife has some medical training, and so she came out, and I don't want to say that she opened the car door in an attempt to get what was in all likelihood probably the body out, because the car was nearly completely destroyed on impact, but she was able to kind of lean it before the flames got too hot for her to really render any aid. And after the crash, you know, the intersection is full. Other drivers reported like fiery chunks of car parts raining down from the sky. And so this 10th Street is a suburban neighborhood. It's a pretty dense urban suburban area. We're inside the 465 loop. And so it didn't make sense to me that at peak capacity, a driver could go that fast, could achieve those speeds. That tells me that the road is way overbuilt for what the traffic it has and for the general safety and well-being of the folks that live on the street. So we use the city's new tactical urbanism policy and feedback from neighbors to mimic what a permanent change might look like to prevent that particular catastrophe and to make the environment 24 hours a day better for everyone. This particular picture is right at 10th and Ritter, which is the middle of the project, and it's looking east towards downtown. At the middle of the project, looking east, the lanes are between 10 and 11 feet wide. We have a center turn lane that's broken up by these 4 8-foot barriers arranged in a diamond pattern with a tree in the center to mimic a center turn lane. If you look in the opposite direction, the lanes are much wider. So they are 13 feet wide, and we were able to use that excess space to line up barriers along the bike lanes, and we'll see that later. Those that not only protected the bike lane, but also the sidewalk, folks' cars in their driveway and their homes. And I want to emphasize that even if you have bike facilities and sidewalk facilities, if drivers are routinely leaving the road like they are on 10th Street, the facilities don't get used as much as they could be, because the constant crashes in my neighborhood means that, you know, you see the debris, you hear the sirens, you drive by, you see the cops flashing lights, taking notes, and it doesn't inspire a lot of confidence for biking and walking. Okay, Connie, if you want to go on the next slide. So without the barriers, we took this data before. I believe it's current in that we have the project is over and neighbors are reporting speeding again at frequent rates. The speed limit along this particular section of East 10th Street is 35 miles per hour. We see that a majority of drivers are exceeding the speed limit. The top speed that we recorded was 51 miles per hour. This spread, where a car might be driving 24 miles an hour or it might be going twice as fast, means that if you're trying to cross in the road, it's very hard to judge, is it safe to cross, because the speeds are so different driver to driver. You also see this picture, what it looks like looking to the west from about the middle of our project. We have bike facilities. You also see on the left that we have sidewalk facilities, and those sidewalk facilities are mostly right next to the road. And it's great to have these two things. However, because it's just paint, there's nothing, there's no bollards, there's no curb. It really, both of those facilities contribute to the drag strip effect, or the driver going down this road sees a wide open expanse of space and they just naturally go a little faster because if you remove the paint on this road, this is exactly what an Indy car driver sees at the speedway. Wide, straight, flat expanse of road, really not suitable for a neighborhood. You want to go to the next slide? It took us about 18 months to secure a permit. Once we had that, we rolled out, this image here shows the bike lane and sidewalk protections, as well as this is our tallest tree that we had in the center turn lanes. We watered these trees every single day and we planted them in the neighborhood. 11 of them are along 10th Street. And I have great news. Of all the trees that we planted, every one of them has leaves on them. We have one that the branches don't look so hot, but we're confident that they all got the best chance that they could. And 11 of these trees were planted along 10th Street. So in 20 years, when they're much bigger than they are, they will have a traffic calming effect. But we do hope that it doesn't take 20 years for those trees to have traffic calming, because the city will have done something with the data that we gave them. So if you go to the next slide. With the barriers, we saw a pretty dramatic decrease in the speeds that we saw. We saw a compression at the top end. So our top speed that we reported was 41 miles per hour with the project installed. This is a 10-mile-per-hour drop from the when the project was not installed. The 85th percentile, which I show marked here in yellow, is a number that engineers use to set speed limits. And it's simply counting back the 15 of the fastest cars to get what speed the 85th car driver has chosen to travel. And so really our road design with a min-mix center turn lane and protections and a narrowing of the lanes is what it should look like if we want the speed limit to be 35. Design really determines how fast drivers are going, not the little placard on the side of the road. All right, next slide. Of course, the big difference that we saw, and we got this data from IMPD crash reports, were that crashes dropped 73% with the barriers compared to the year prior. 3 out of every 4 crashes on East 10th Street is preventable. I want to talk just a little bit about what this means for emergency services. I know the fire department is deeply concerned about being able to travel as quickly as possible to their calls. However, the fire department does respond to these crashes as well. And so this represents a burdening of our emergency services. Marion County has 8,400 miles of roads, and every third day they are on our 1-mile stretch to deal with a, in all likelihood, preventable crash. The other thing is, psychologically for the neighborhood, when you go from a crash multiple times per week to a crash every couple of weeks, folks start to come out and walk the couple blocks to get to the neighborhood. It creates a more vibrant streetscape when you have folks out. It's kind of a positive feedback cycle of something is now happening on 10th Street besides speeding drivers and crashes. And so you get a positive feedback loop of people are out, things are going on, so I should slow down and make sure I'm driving in a safe manner. All right. The part that, if you've heard my spiel before, that's going to be different this time is my next slide. So Connie, half of the crashes that occurred while the barriers were in place, which again, 75% decrease, 3 out of 4 were prevented. At least half of those were a single car crashing into a barrier, which if you have to have a crash, that is the best type to have, a car with a stationary object. If, if you think about the worst type of crash, that's a head-on collision. One of these crashes was a woman traveling in a minivan with a bunch of kids. Her front window fogged up, and she drifted into the center turn lane and hit a barrier. We could all imagine what would happen if the barrier had not been there and instead she had continued to drift into the opposing lane of traffic. These things happen. Another of these crashes was a man had a medical emergency and passed out. He very gently push the barriers and a tree in the center turn lane forward about a block. The tree was completely unharmed. That's how slow he was going. But if you can imagine if in that initial story that I told that someone was traveling down the center turn lane at 100 miles per hour, his medical emergency could have been deadly. We had a wildly successful project. This tactical urbanism policy is great. It brings out community members. We've had over 400 volunteers over 2 summers in our projects on 16th Street and 10th Street. However, the 10th Street project is no longer up, and 6 days after the project was removed, we had our first rollover since, I don't know when the last one was. A rollover did not occur in the 3 months this was installed, but it was not very long before we were back to business as usual. This woman ended up in the hospital. The truck driver was the only one who knows what happened there. So I'll leave you with that. My encouraging thought would be to thank you all for all your advocacy. Don't give up. I have some hope that the city is moving in the right direction. I hope they get to my neighborhood soon. Oh, any questions? Oh, what season was the traffic calming up? So it was up from June 1st to August or to October 31st. So July, August. Wait, what do I have? This has been so long and it's only been a year. August, September, October, it was 90 days. And that was last summer. You can still see our mural. We used on 16th Street. I would highly recommend anybody swing by. Again, the last third is unfinished because we got skunked by rain, but you can see a beautiful bee, which is the mascot for Anna Brockhausen Elementary School. And that mural remains the only permanent installation in the right-of-way.
Thank you so much, Leslie. One of the things that I want to talk about or just mention is that in general, quick build projects or tactical urbanism projects are usually done as experiments, testing out ideas with the idea that we'll test out this idea, adjust it, tweak it, and then make it permanent. And there's not really a way forward in Indianapolis's tactical urbanism policy for that. I'm hoping with the 86th and Monon, it's not nearly as big a project as Leslie's project was. It's just one intersection. But I'm hoping that we can show that we need more permanent infrastructure there and that it does make a difference, as well as the ideas that are at that intersection for a major trail crossing could also be duplicated and replicated throughout the city at other trail crossings. So, I have big plans for my little intersection, even though it's but my intersection, our intersection, everybody's intersection. But the idea is, or should be, that there should be a way forward that maybe you don't do a tactical urbanism unless you have dedicated funding to actually make that thing permanent. And so the next slides actually are going to be of traffic calming that is being done in other cities, what other cities are doing. And so I'm going to get to that just shortly. Let me check chat real quick. All right, so we didn't have a successful traffic call or video playing, so I won't try that again. I learned my lesson with the first one. But I encourage you to go to this 3-minute video about Cincinnati. So in 2024, they are doing 56 traffic calming projects. And one of the quotes from the City Department of Transportation is, the fact that we're able to do over 50 projects in 1 year really shows the commitment that the City Council has made to pedestrian safety. And I think that's a really important quote in recognizing the role that everybody has to play. If we don't have support from city leadership, then these types of projects can't happen. But they're doing 56 this year. The tactical urbanism projects, I think maybe there have been 4 that I know of. Leslie, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But you know, they're not happening as fast. And the thing is, you know, the city of Cincinnati, they can say, these are the troublesome areas that we need to do a traffic calming project and address the safety issues. The ones that are happening in Indianapolis right now are because of individuals like Leslie and community organizations like Nora Alliance and Bicycle Garage Indy, who have said, yes, we want to make this intersection better, or want to make this street better. It's also the places where they probably most need it aren't necessarily going to have those people in place to be in, those organizations in place to be able to do that. So so I would love to transplant this 56 traffic calming projects in a year to Indianapolis. That's one of the ideas I would love to see come out of this coming budget session, of a Vision Zero action plan. It's doable. It's not just in Cincinnati. Other cities are doing it as well, which I'll show. They also, Cincinnati is my poster child right now. They also are have a pedestrian safety team. It's a 5-member team embedded in their DPW. And they go out when there is a pedestrian crash, and they make quick build changes to the intersections and it's rapid response on roadways and intersections. And they did a barrier. This is one of their first things they did the first year. The overall cost to the city for this thing was $5,000, and it took weeks instead of months. So it's not something that takes millions of dollars or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. This took $5,000, and it showed driver compliance with the speed limit increased from 50% to 67%. So they already got an increase just with this $5,000 investment. Milwaukee is my other poster child. They, over the course of 2 years, did 100, or between last year and this year, we'll do close to 100 traffic calming projects. And one project is already seeing a 69% drop in the number of speeding motorists. This is a running thing where if you build it, it will change behavior. Infrastructure changes behavior. Jersey City. So if you think that, oh, we can't get down to Vision Zero, Jersey City achieved 0 fatalities in 2022. Their Vision Zero policy began in 2018. The goal of 0 fatalities by 2026. They reached it in 4 years. Unfortunately, last year they regressed and had 4 fatalities. They have a population of 300,000. And they had 4 fatalities, 4 traffic fatalities. And they had 0 traffic fatalities the year before. So over the course of 2 years, this city of 300,000 people had 4 traffic fatalities. If that was, extrapolate to population of Indianapolis, that would be 12 traffic fatalities. That's a tenth of what we currently have. They have a Vision Zero report that the link is in the report. Louisville also has Vision Zero, and I liked their site because it showed how you can prioritize projects and track what's being accomplished. So every year they say we've got this 69% accomplished and 75% accomplished, or, and so it's a good blueprint to look at as far as how you do accountability. If you go to this link, you'll see the video of this, but this is actually in Reno, Nevada. It should be Reno, Nevada. I'll change that in the slides. Their police department had plainclothes police officers walk across where there were some, troublesome intersections where a lot of people were speeding through them. And so the police officers were in plain clothes and went through, and if there was a speeding car that, like this one, almost hit this person, he signaled to the police officer that was on a motorcycle just up the road, and then sent them to ticket. So this is a way that enforcement can be involved with Vision Zero if you know where the troublesome spots are. And we do have troublesome spots that we know exactly where they are. So going on to, I'm going to go back. I'll check with chat. Let's see if there's anything here. Let's see. Oh, so there are a couple of questions about, so the tactical urbanism programs, projects have to be torn out or taken down prior to November 1st. And actually, I think ours is October 5th. We have to have ours taken out. Not sure why it's October 5th and not November 1st, but so there are 2 types of tactical urbanism projects in Indianapolis. One is there's a pilot one, and I forget what the other one is called. The pilot one is the longer one, and then there's one that's like for a day or a week or something like that. So the one at 86th and Monon, you can start them as early as April 1st. So you could get potentially 6 or 7 months out of it, but they have to be taken out by the end of they're temporary. They're meant to be temporary. But like I said, there should be a way to make them permanent, or a stopgap from, maybe you can't make it fully permanent, but you can do something that's an interim until you can make it permanent. So we have a couple of asks for budget and policy for councilors, as well as just city leadership in general. So the immediate, I've been framing this, and several of the councilors who I've had conversations with have heard me say this very same thing. So this is not new for those of you, but when you're in a crisis situation, the first thing you do in an emergency room is triage. So triage is what Cincinnati's pedestrian safety team does. There's a crash at an intersection, and they go and they make quick changes. And And then the immediate also is passing the Vision Zero ordinance with staffing and funding support to be able to implement it in 2025 budget. So that's immediate. Longer term is to allocate 25 million, starting with the 2025 budget, to plan 100 traffic calming projects in the high injury network and high crash intersection areas. That we already have them defined. We know where they are. You won't be able to address all of them. Pick one, pick one or two and do traffic calming. If they can do 100 or 56 traffic calming in a year in Cincinnati, surely we can in Indianapolis. Now Milwaukee did 100 projects for about 20 million. So that's around 200,000 per project average. So we're not talking hundreds of millions of dollars, and we're not even talking hundreds of millions of dollars per project. We're talking, maybe 100 to 250,000 a project to save lives. And then systemic change is create and implement a Vision Zero plan and actually allocate funding to be able to implement it, and adopt NACTO's design standards. NACTO is a more progressive urban road design that has more options than a lot of what the normal design standards are. I'm not describing it very well, but we have the ability in Indianapolis to make this the default standard going forward. That's preventative. So we have immediate triage, we have longer term, which is, longer term care, and then we have systemic change, which is preventative. And those are the three asks. Some of these are policies and some are two big budget asks. But when you look at the budget of DPW, this isn't even 15% of the budget. 60% of crashes happen on 15% of the roadways. If we can work on those 15%, you saw the maps where all the, where the high risk areas are. It's not every single road. It's if you're systematic about where you apply those funds to create safer roads, not just for pedestrians and bicyclists, but for all road users. I saw, it's a better, more fiscally responsible use of funds to address the places that need it the most. Saw there's some social media about that Vision Zero is more about pedestrians and bicyclists, and actually 10% of the crashes involve pedestrians and bicyclists. If you have, and 60% of the crashes, fatalities, are motorists. And so if you have Vision Zero, if you actually reach zero traffic fatalities, that impacts many more motorists actually than it does bicyclists and pedestrians. And it makes everybody safer. Let's see. So we have some calls to action. And I'm gonna check chat first. Okay. So first of all, oops, let me go back. So call to action, immediate action steps are contact your city-county councilor, hopefully in support of full implementation of Proposal 224 and significant budgetary resources to address traffic safety. and also contact the mayor or send an online message, and there are links in the presentation. There is, for organizations, there's a sign-on letter for support of Vision Zero and budget allocations for pedestrian and bicycle safety. There will be a petition. I'll have a link and when I share this presentation for that, as well as a link directly in the email that I send out afterwards for individuals to sign on as well. And then also, if you can make it to the Council Public Works Committee meeting a week from Thursday, that's when they're going to be voting in the committee. If it makes it out of committee, then it will go to the full council on August 12th. So, you know, showing support at both of those would be great. And then lastly, you could suggest a story or send a letter to the editor sharing your reasons for supporting an ordinance. And we have some members of the media on this call, so I'm sure they would be interested in hearing more from everyone. And then longer term ones, last year, I got a little busy earlier this year, and I really meant to have council bike rides starting as early as May and didn't get that, but went on several bike rides with counselors last year, and I hope to get those up and running August, September, and October of this year. So if you're interested in helping attend, assist or attend one of those, feel free to contact me. And continue to ask for action and funding, and hold council, elected officials, city agencies accountable with implementing and following the vision action plan once that is established. Everyone has a role to play. So elected officials, most of it is policy and funding decisions, but you also get there with communication with your constituents. City agencies are implementing the policies and hopefully open to receiving feedback from community members. Community organizations' role is communicating with city leadership, being the go-between between your members and the city leadership, and helping frame funding and policy priorities. Community advocates are our role as community advocates, and I kind of assume that the majority of people on this call are community advocates, but is continuing to push for more and faster action. That is our role as advocates. And media is continued coverage of this issue. I would love in 4 years to be able to say that we got down to zero traffic fatalities. I would really love that. And I think it is doable. Jersey City did it. There's several other cities that have done that. And it's not this pie in the sky number. It's an actual doable number. And I think that is all I have. So I'm going to check chat. Let's see. Yeah, so there we'll have some links to different media outlets as well. Yeah, so one big point to address, and it's widely seen, Vision Zero is widely seen as strictly pedestrian and bike initiative, and it's not at all. It is all traffic fatalities. And the thing about the Vision Zero proposal is that it's actually by 2035, it's not only fatalities, but serious injuries. I think I would recommend that you look at fatalities first, because if you actually make a difference with the fatalities, because there's a lot more serious injuries than there are fatalities. There was 122 fatalities and there was 2,200 serious injuries. So if you're getting down to zero of both of those, yeah, it'll probably take 10 years. But if we focus on fatalities, that will also help the serious injuries along the way. But I think it'll be a little bit longer to get to zero that way. Yeah, so I think there's a couple of questions about, try to reframe it about for those who exclusively drive. And I think that Vision Zero network will probably have some great resources there as well. So I encourage you to look at Vision Zero network, and I'll look at that as well, see what there are. Does anybody else have any additional comments or questions? We're getting up to the time that I said we were going to stop. I know we've got a couple of counselors on here. If you would like the opportunity to, yeah, I will go back to the action slide. Which one? You want that one, Matt?
Actually, the one before, please, Connie.
Okay. So we will have sign-on letters, contact Mayor Hogsett, contact your specific city county council if they're not on this call, and even if they are on this call, just so that they know that you are totally in support. And yes, I will be sharing the slides as well as the recording to this as soon as the recording is available, and as well as some of the links. So you'll get that most likely tomorrow.
Connie, I just wanted to emphasize this slide like 100 times, because one thing I've learned being on the council is that every single department in the city is trying to do $10 worth of work for 50 cents, and people are trying really hard to do what constituents want. But the very large budget we have gets spread very thin over a 400 square mile city. And so it's very easy for requests to get kind of lost in the sauce among all the noise. And so it really does take a concerted effort from a lot of people reaching out to show that this really is a priority and needs the attention and the money put behind it. So I know you already said that, but I just want to reiterate, yes, that's very true. It's 100% true. Please reach out.
Thank you. And I really want to thank everyone for attending this. And I don't want anyone to think that this is the first and only Ped Bike Safety Summit. I think there probably can be additional opportunities, especially after Vision Zero is passed and after, before the budget, or there will probably be other calls to action, maybe not an online summit necessarily, but additional calls to action that everybody can take.
I know people are sharing it in the chat, but wanted to just verbally thank Connie for herding cats to get this on the calendar. It took months and months of trying to get on folks' schedules, and it wasn't easy. And it's really inspiring to, see at the high point 45 participants in the room, and people that are really, and more people interested in watching the recording. So thank you, Connie, and thanks for everyone being on here and caring so much about our city.
I'll make a quick acknowledgement too.
Thank you.
I also just want to say thank you. So I'm the district counselor for the Castleton area. I've been really fortunate that you guys really mobilize very well. Counselor Delaney and I represents a lot of the Nora area, including obviously the 86th and Monon intersection. We were able to get about 200 signatures submitted to the Department of Transportation to get bridges over 86th and the Monon and 82nd and the Nickel Plate. And a lot of that was because of, again, the mobilization of you all that really promoted those things. And we're very fortunate for you all for helping out with that. And we're hoping we have as competitive a grant as possible to get that federal money for both those bridges, but it'll be huge, literally life-saving things for both those areas.
Yeah, I also, so Bicycle Garage Indy also got 700 signatures on a sign-on letter of individuals for that application as well. So hopefully,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it greatly.
Let's see, anything else? So thank you very much for everyone. I'm going to go ahead and end this call unless somebody has anything else they want to say. And if not, enjoy the rest of your evening. Can't believe we got this done in an hour and a half. I'm excited about that. But there's a lot of information that's included in the links on this presentation. So I hope you'll go back and check out, especially the videos that didn't play because they were really important, but modern technology. So thanks again, and keep in touch, and look for an email either tomorrow or the next day with all of the recording, the slides and links and action. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Connie.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Connie. Great job tonight.
Thanks.